Hey guys, I just watched Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'll do a review of it later. The Eternals strangely announced after the canceled New Gods movie. The Eternals is Marvel's latest, well, Spider-Man No Way Home if you count that, in the successful Marvel Cinematic Universe, and let's get on with it. The film is about 10 superheroes who live throughout history trying to stop the apocalypse from happening. And that's it. Please, Super Paper Mario this crap. I like the plot, but why is the apocalypse called the Emergence? It's a celestial coming out of a planet. That doesn't feel like the word emergence. I like that the film feels like a Jack Kirby comic. The suits of the characters and the designs of the celestials are good, but it's not too Jack Kirby. There's also a lot of talking in this movie, and there's also a lot of exposition. And not to mention, this movie is very long when it should have not been. It's about 2.5 hours long. Kevin Feige has also been hyping up this movie as it's going to win them awards. I hate to break it to you, Kevin Feige, but it's definitely not going to win you awards. It might win a special effects award, like at the Oscars, but it's not going to win them a Best Pictures nominee. Considering the politics of this movie, it might. But the good movies of the year usually don't win Best Picture. Nowadays, it's just film filled with identity politics. Chloe Zhao is a good director, and I have seen Nomadland, and that was really good. But you could tell that she's not a comic book reader. Also, before I get to the characters of this movie, what the hell is with the sex scene? What's this movie rated? Also, this movie has 10 characters, and originally was going to have 12 characters. Kevin Feige, what the hell are you smoking, and can I have some? That was a joke. Let's get on with the characters. First, I want to point out that instead of invincible gods, like in the comics, they're space robots with superpowers. And when they discover that they're robots, they don't really care, except Makari. First, let's start off with Icarus. Icarus, I can say, is the best part of the movie, and he is played by a good actor who's fit for this role. I've never seen Game of Thrones, I'm sorry. But the part where they made him a villain is surprisingly and non-surprisingly because of the politics of this movie. Not to mention, he's the most recognizable Eternal in the comics. That's kind of unfair to make him a villain. Also, how much do you want to bet that he's still alive? Who knows? I think my favorite character in the movie was Kingo. I felt that he was the comedic center of this movie. Except the documentary thing is a long-running joke. Also, Kingo is Asian and a Japanese film star in the comics. I don't know why they changed that, but I don't know. Also, why did he leave at the end of the movie? Was Kumail Nanjiani busy with another movie? Or did they not know what to do with him? That's what happens when you have too many characters, kids. Next up is the main character, Cersei. I like her superpower, but she doesn't feel worthy of her protagonist, and that's her entire character. She's in love with Icarus, and she's the main character. Now let's go on to the leader of the Eternals, Ajax, who is both a race and a gender bend. I like Salma Hayek, but you can tell she does not want to be in a big franchise like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's why they just casted her just to kill her off. Also, why is the healer the leader? That rhymes, if you know what I mean. Also, Ajax in the comics is a villain, and in the comics, whoever takes the role of communicating with the Celestials from him gets an ass whooping from him. Also, in the comics, the leader is a character named Zerez, who is not in this movie. And if they ever put Zerez in this movie, we all know what they would do to him, since he's a redhead. I think my third favorite character is Druid. He just feels like intimidating, especially since he has his own civilization. Also, Druid in the comics is a villain, so why isn't he the traitor instead of Icarus? But at the same time, he's not as powerful as Icarus. Plus, Druid does like medicine, so... Next up is Thena. I did not care for her in this movie, which is sad because Angelina Jolie is the biggest actor you can get for a main character. Thena is just there. Next up is Thena's best friend, Gilgamesh. I didn't care for him either. His only purpose is to keep Athena calm and get killed off. Also, Gilgamesh is a villain in the comics and is known as the Forgotten One. That sounds cool. Also, I feel bad for Don Lee. He seems very popular in South Korea, where he's from. So I wish they could have written him better. Next up is Sprite, who I call a whiny little bitch, because that's all she does. Also, Sprite is a dude in the comics. Next up is the biggest disappointment in this movie, Makari. Makari is my favorite character in the comics, and they changed him, or should I say her, a lot. Makari has an interesting story in the comics, not that she doesn't here. Here, she's deaf, black, and a female. Hell, I would have no problem with this if this was a new character, but it's cool to see deaf representation in Hollywood, and I have an uncle who's deaf in real life. I'm sure Lauren Ridloff is a sweet person, but it just feels like Makari and Fastos were only in this movie for representation purposes. Speaking of that, let's talk about Fastos. Fastos, I can say, is a very interesting character. Him being gay doesn't matter to me, but at the same time, he's another changed character. He also somehow had a beef with Icarus in the movie, but they never mentioned that until the end of the movie. There's also Dane Whitman, aka Black Knight, and he's only in this movie for future MCU bait. There's also a post-credit scene introducing Mahershala Ali as Blade, so... Also, that is not Crow. Crow is a completely different character in the comics. Here, they just screwed him up. In the comics, he's half human, half deviant, who is in a relationship with Athena and even had a kid together. They were setting some of that up, but then they just killed him off out of nowhere. All the deviants, I like their designs, but their purpose in the movie, which is to stop the emergence, by the way, just makes them feel like misunderstood good guys. Now there's the Celestials. I love the designs of the Celestials, especially Arishem. I thought he was cool. Even the name Tiamat is cool, and is inspired by a real-life legend. Also, there is a post-credit scene introducing Star Fox, played by Harry Styles. Man, I hate that guy. I hate every single One Direction member. Keep in mind, a film doesn't need to be comic book accurate, but sometimes the comics have stuff that should be adapted into film. If you're looking for a movie with diversity just for the sake of diversity, or you just want to watch a superhero movie, then this is the right movie for you. The Eternals is one of the weaker MCU movies, down there with Thor, The Dark World, and Black Widow. I give The Eternals a 5.7 out of 10. I need to watch this movie again. If my rating changes, I'll tell you guys in the comments below. Anyway, guys, I am Undead, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Oh, and it's Christmas Eve by the time I'm recording this, and by the time I'm uploading this, so I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas from the Grinch and from Undead himself, who I kidnapped him in my lair, and you must save him. Just kidding, we're not gonna make that an arc. He's done making skit videos. Well, just kidding. He's gonna do it in the future, but hey. Merry Christmas. Bah humbug. Fahum